Hi there. It is time to do a fall chore, planting garlic. Let me get you turned around. So this is where this past year I had tomatoes down through most of this. My sweet potatoes were down there. You can see I haven't cleaned up the cherry tomatoes yet. Over here I tried some squash late in the season. You can see they're still pretty small. The squash bugs were eating on them, so there are a couple of little squashes. If you can see that, I don't know. We have had a couple nights where it's been down below 32, barely. Most things it has not really affected too much, but so I don't know if we're going to get anything from these or not. Probably not. I probably should just tear them out. But over here, we're going, this is an area where I had garlic last year. I had garlic kind of everywhere. I had garlic here, I had some over there, I had some here. What I'm going to try to do this year is be a little more, not all over the place. So I have added 10 bags, 1 cubic foot each, about 40 pounds each, of a compost manure mixture that comes in a bag. So it's not like it's raw manure. It's been seasoned, or whatever you want to describe it as, to help bring back up the bed level. I built these last year. You can see there's some places where they've kind of sunk down. So I don't necessarily want to be planting where it's real low. I contemplated spreading this out in a couple of areas, but I'm going to see if I can maybe fit all of my garlic here. I don't think I can, but I'm going to try to get most of it here and then maybe put a little bit here. This bed isn't quite as low, plus the way, if I plant it here, the angle of where the sun is, it'll still get plenty of sun. It won't be having an issue of like the bed being low blocking things. And if I can kind of contain it to this space here, then in the spring my plan is to bring in some more dirt and refill up the beds, top them off, and it would just be this space right here that would have to wait till the garlic is done to get topped off. So that is my plan. What I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just make a line with my finger and then poke some holes. I'm going to try this year to be a little better about spacing them just a tiny bit farther apart, and see how many rows I can get here. I think I can get, this is a little over 3 feet wide, and I don't want to go all the way to the edge, so that I can save a little bit of a couple inches back there to maybe put in a couple marigold plants, because when the garlic comes out, something else will go in here in July. So anyways, I think I'm going to try to do 4 or 5 inches between. I think I can get 6 or so rows of garlic, and then should be able to get quite a few plants in here, because this is 8 feet to the end of where I added some dirt. So we'll see how this goes. What I am doing as far as to get things ready is I have a bucket here with, I just dumped in, I did not measure, some bone meal, some blood meal, and some general fertilizer from MIGardener called Trifecta. That's just an all-purpose but gentle kind of fertilizer. So I just kind of mix that all up. I'm going to just sprinkle that all over to give some little extra nutrition, although with this being probably a good 3 or 4 inches of the it's at least the depth of my fingers of the compost manure. There's already a lot of nutrition here, and then I will come through at some point and sprinkle some alfalfa pellets over the top, and then as the winter progresses, the coating on the alfalfa pellet will dissolve, and it'll kind of spread out. It'll form a little bit of a mulch. That's what happened. That's what I did this past year. It kind of helped, I think, with suppressing weeds starting in the early spring, and alfalfa has a lot of nitrogen in it, so it kind of gave a nice natural boost of nitrogen to the garden bed. What I have are several varieties of garlic. I'm still kind of narrowing down. Eventually, I think I'll get myself down to where I'm only planting 3 or 4 varieties. But basically, what you do to plant your garlic is you take the bulb. You want to get nice sized bulbs. Now this looks a little smaller, but this is called Spanish Roja, and I think this was the one that when I bought the seed garlic last year, it said that it tends to be a little bit smaller. So that's actually a really nice sized bulb. It's still very firm. There's no evidence of any kind of disease or anything. And then what you're going to do is you're going to gently, so this is a hard neck, so this is very hard kind of stem in there. I'm going to break this up just enough so that I can get the cloves apart, trying not to take any of the peel off of the cloves. Ideally, you want to plant your cloves still with layers of paper on them because that's going to help protect it from rotting while it's getting started growing. So we're going to plant these in the ground just like this, 1 clove per hole. And each clove will just kind of rest here through the winter. They might sprout up some greenery before we get into the real deep winter time. If they don't, it's fine. They'll do that in the spring. So I'm going to plant these, and I'm pretty sure it's point side up. And then they will kind of hibernate through the winter, kind of the same way like a daffodil bulb would. And then in the spring, they'll start to sprout, and then they'll grow, and we'll give them some fertilizer a couple of times through the spring and early summer, and then they will turn into a whole head of garlic. So each one of these will become a whole head of garlic. So you want to separate them, keep as much paper on as possible, plant them 4 to 6 inches apart, and then in the spring, each one of these turns into a head of garlic. So let me get going on that, and I'll show you when we're done. All right, all of that is planted over there. I'll go over there and show you what we ended up with in a minute. I realized I still had a couple bags of that compost manure squirreled away in my garage, so I brought it out here, and because I did need a little more space for the last 2 kinds of garlic, and so I was able to put that in here to bring the level up and also add some of the nutrition that comes just naturally from the compost and the manure. And what I did was I just kind of roughed everything up with my trowel, and that was the layer of stuff that was here before. It was not compacted too bad, but it was a little stiff. So I just kind of zhuzhed it up a little bit, loosened it with my trowel, and then put the compost manure over top. I just threw some handfuls of that mixture of fertilizers on the top and then kind of mixed it all together. And then I just went through with my hand and made a hole about the size of my index finger. And then it is point side up, so the part that's like where the roots are goes down. And then you just tuck the garlic clove down in there so that it's going to be covered by a couple 3 inches of the soil. And so we're just putting these in here like this, tucking those in. And I tried to kind of get my spacing a little more consistent this year, and to help with, because most of the garlic that I'm planting is a type that's called hardneck. It'll get a very hard stem in the center, but there are a couple varieties. This variety here in the middle is a soft neck. So the soft neck don't require anything other than a couple rounds of fertilizing while they're growing. The hardneck, about a month before they'll be ready to harvest, so sometime in early June, that center stalk that gets hard also is sending up in that time of year a shoot that comes up, and it's real stiff, and it comes up, and then it'll have like a little bulb at the top, and then it'll start to curl. That's called a scape, and it's actually somewhat of a delicacy. But what you want to do is you want to snip that off at that time of year, because what it's trying to do is the garlic plant is trying to grow a flower to reproduce itself with seeds. We don't want that. We want all that energy going into making us new, healthy, big heads of garlic. And that's how we're going to propagate it, is through the cloves. So we want all that energy going into producing a nice, as big as possible of a bulb. So with the hardneck varieties, by the way, what I'm doing now is just kind of closing up these holes, covering them in. And so what we do is we cut that off so that the garlic, the hardneck variety, focuses on growing those bulbs. Softneck don't do that. They should not be putting up a scape. If they do, And this happened to me my very first year of growing garlic. I had ordered a hardneck variety and a soft neck, and all of my garlic plants produced scapes. So I called the company, or contacted the company, and they checked with the growers and the plant experts, and it turns out that occasionally with weather conditions and just, I don't know, plant biology, they can revert to a previous form. So maybe those were a hybrid style of soft neck, I don't remember. But they reverted to a hard neck form, which is what they must have been originally at some point grown from, and then selectively propagated to produce a soft neck variety. So those soft necks reverted to hard neck. So I did try, the last 2 years I have tried a different kind of soft neck to see. Soft neck is not really recommended for my area. I'm in central Ohio. We're like a zone 6, and because we get cold in the winter and our growing season isn't as long as, say, like in a California hotter region, it's not recommended for us to do soft neck. They do better in warmer, milder climates, but you can grow them. And I thought it would be interesting to try. So I actually had some pretty good luck with my soft neck this year. So we're going to try a couple different varieties. So what we have here are some chestnut red on either side. I put the hard necks on the outside. The inside is a little bit harder for me to get to trim off the scapes I noticed this year. So I put a soft neck variety here called Nootka Rose. And then over here we have, I put the other soft neck at the back here. Again, that's harder for me to get to, so trimming off those scapes. So that's an early Italian. They actually were they were the first ones ready. And then we have Amish Rocambole. It's I think a white porcelain style hard neck. And then Music. Music tends to be a really good choice if you're not sure what kind to get. Music tends to do pretty good most places. And then Northern White, that was a new white one that I tried. And then Spanish Roja, which is a hard, but it tends to stay smaller. But according to the website I got these from, they tend to have a little more flavor. So we're going to try those one more time and see what we get. So we've got, what is that, 5 varieties over here and 2 varieties over here. Chestnut red would be the other option that I would recommend if somebody wanted to try garlic for the first time. It's another really pretty good, easy to grow variety. So everybody's tucked in. I'm going to sprinkle another layer of that, of my mixture here over top of everything. And then when the weather starts to get a little bit colder again, or even more colder, I'll come out here and sprinkle my alfalfa pellets. That will also give the effect of having a little bit of a mulch covering. Some people do mulch the top of where they plant garlic with something like pine needles, or like a pine straw, or hang on a second. So some people also put a layer over top of their places where they plant their garlic with either straw, or last year I used some pine straw, and I just didn't feel like maybe it did that much, and it was a little bit of a pain. I did try pine shavings, which can also be used like bedding for like rabbit habitats or homes. I'm still not sure if that was a good use, using that this year. I also tried putting it around the base of my tomato and pepper plants. I don't know if it helped or not. We had a really crazy weather year here with a huge amount of rain early on in the summer, and then we went back into drought conditions. So I don't know if it helped or not. I may try that again. I've still got a bunch of the pine shavings, but I think for this purpose, you wouldn't have to put mulch. I'm going to put down the alfalfa pellets just to give a little bit of covering and a little boost of nitrogen in the spring. So anyways, there you go. Planting the garlic for this year. Thank you for joining me here in Aunt Susan's garden.